So glad you're here with us today. And just to let you know the format for today's webinar, it's going to be a moderated conversation with Stedman and Joey, and we'll have a chance for questions and answers towards the end. And as we go through it, if there's questions that are coming up for you, feel free to place them into the chat box, and we'll take some time and get to as many questions as we can. And I just want to let everybody know that today's personal and professional development is being sponsored by Thrive Global, Educare Foundation, and the How Kids Learn Foundation. And for those of you who may not be familiar with Educare, just a few words about Educare. We're one of the largest after-school programs in Los Angeles. And our whole thought, and it goes right in line with the work that Stedman and Joey have been doing, is to waking kids up to who they are and what their lives could become. Our mission is about inspiring, empowering our young people to become responsible citizens, compassionate leaders, and to live their dreams. And since we got our start in 1990, there's been now over 250,000 students in different parts of the country and the world who've participated, and over 500 schools. And we're just so pleased that it's really touching kids' lives in ways that they're graduating and moving on. And about a quarter, actually it's about 20% of our staff actually were kids inside of our programs 5 and 10, 15 years ago. And now they're kicking me out of my seat and going, you know, we're taking charge, and I love it. So the empowering part, and that's what's today about, of reaching our kids in the communities and letting them really shine, Educare's right behind that. And we're honored and very appreciative that we have Stedman Graham and Joey Hubbard with us today, because their work over their lifetimes is about just this, lifting people up into their better selves and really letting them just move into their lives and propel themselves. And I've known Joey for decades, and I've been fortunate to get to know Stedman over the last several weeks and months. And I really realized that their source of inspiration comes from knowing that it's from within leadership is really founded. And you're going to hear today on Stedman's thoughts and his writings on identity leadership of how do we become that leader to ourselves, a leader from the heart, a leader with passion, with direction, with purpose, and a leader who serves back. And I think it's not only what they say, but their lives have demonstrated that. So I think we're in for a great treat. I just want to share a little bit, as I've gotten to know Stedman Graham, a little bit about his history, and then I'm going to turn it over, as I also share about Joey, to the two of them. A little bit about Stedman. He grew up in New Jersey, and his commitment to the community and youth has been there throughout his life. He's an accomplished author, a two-time New York Times bestseller. He's the chairman and CEO of Graham & Associates, a management and marketing consulting firm. And his clients include Gulfstream Aerospace, Microsoft, CVS Pharmacy, the US Department of Labor, and others. And one thing I was really happy to learn as I read of his life is back in 1985, he founded a nonprofit called AAD Education, Health, and Sports. And it was a gathering of athletes and civic leaders with the whole intent was to take kids and develop them from local communities, the underserved kids, kids of color, and really take them into building those skills they need to succeed. And he's delivered his message throughout the country and globally, and it's titled through the whole theme of identity leadership, which you'll learn about today. So Stedman, I'm just so glad you're with us, and let me just introduce Joey, and then I'm gonna turn it over to the two of you. Joey and I go back decades, and I often joke, and I was telling Joey earlier just now that he's been on our board for 20 years of Educare. And we were both teenagers at the time, not actually, but we were younger at the time. And his commitment to kids and to communities, I've seen it over the years. He was raised in Los Angeles, and currently Joey Hubbard's the Chief Training Officer of Thrive Global, which has been founded by Ariana Huffington. And Thrive Global, for those of you who don't know, it's committed to really helping people's mental resilience, health, and productivity. Clients in many parts of the world. And he has also 30 years of experience coaching and assisting people in motivational seminars. And his life is committed to helping people and workforces to live better. So with no more introduction needed, I just want to thank and welcome. I think we're in for a treat today. And as Joey and Stedman, as you introduce yourselves, you might just care to share how your life story may take you to where you are today in terms of lifting other people up. So thank you, Stedman and Joey, and take it away.
Joey, you want to start? You want me to start, or?
Go, man. You're. I think you should begin.
Okay, so first of all, thank you so much, Stu, for that. Pleasure to be here, and thank you for the introduction. Joey, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for what you do, and we've grown to become friends, and I appreciate our relationship. And Educare, the work that Educare does around the country, trying to empower young people, and I think that's an important word. And the question is, how do you actually do that? In a time where we're going through a lot of difficulty. We have the pandemic, which we're all going through. We have the climate changes. We have economic challenges. We have outdated educational systems sometimes. So it requires a new way of thinking. And so in my life, I certainly can connect to all of that and realize that the greatest opportunity for me to achieve in my life is knowing who I am as a person and having a sense of self. And so, I've been trying to figure this out all of my life and trying to find equality and trying to find freedom. And the closest thing that I know to freedom is being able to understand how to take education and information and make it relevant to my identity and to my purpose in life. And then how do I become a thinking human being in the 24 hours that I have every single day, which makes us all equal. Everybody has 24 hours. So it's been a journey of teaching people how to do that. And most of us will never get there because we're not focused on self-development and self-empowerment and self-mastery. So this conversation today is about self. It's about you. And how do you improve yourself so you can create social economic development, maintain your own voice, be able to understand how to define who you are, define your existence, and get through all of the labels, get beyond the labels that put you in a box. So that I can keep going on and on and on, but that's the short of it, okay?
That's the gist. Well, look, Stedman and I have become very close, and part of that foundation was this realization that we are responsible for our own awareness, right? We're responsible for our own identity, and we're responsible for leading ourselves in ways that allow us to lead others. And I've been blessed, and one of the things I also do, some of you know, is I also run a nonprofit as a volunteer CEO called Insight Seminars. And in my experience, I started very young. As Stu said, I used to show up at Stu's class when he was teaching at Audubon when I was 16 years old, because I had been blessed with a mother who made sure that me and my brothers were committed to our own self-growth, and came out of South Central LA where there wasn't a lot of people coming out, but we did. And we did with the awareness of the blessing that we were able to be exposed to people in our lives that made us slow down and pay attention to who we were as individuals. And then from that came this commitment to sharing that awareness with others, but also recognizing that we have a responsibility to serve others, and that the gifts and the blessings we were given, it was really all about really getting into the right mindset that allowed us to be available to those gifts and blessings. And that if we can teach others that mindset, then it allows for them to be able to have the same blessings and gifts. And ultimately, and where again Stedman and I really connected, was when we think about where the most pained portion of our society around this particular issue of self-awareness is, it's our young people, and the educational system not really being designed to teach them that social emotional learning, which Educare has really been leading in so many places all around the country, but really designed to try and teach them information that may or may not make a difference in how they grow as humans, right? So we want to go past just growing the brain. We want to go into growing the heart, growing the soul, growing the part of us that as humans, we care about how other people are experiencing their lives and their world. And so our commitment and the conversation we want to have today is, what does it take to, as an individual, step forward in your own leadership, your own heart, your own commitment to self, and then consequently commitment to others. And so again, my blessings, and I have many, and this relationship that we at Thrive have begun to build with organizations all around the world always starts with that. There's a lot of stuff we're going to talk about you can do, but the real key is who you're going to be. And being will drive what you choose to do, which will drive the results you create. And Stedman and I talk all the time about trying to get kids out of this idea of, I just want the next shoe, or I want the next this or that. It's like, wait a minute, first, want to be the person that you wake up in the morning every day with integrity and with dignity and with love and respect. Then all those other things will come. And so as educators, as many of you on this call are, we want to also talk about this with you because you are the representatives, the examples of who we want them to be. And so that's our goal today. And I'll stop talking as well. And we can start getting into questions about that. And I'd love for you to hear more also about what Stedman's doing with identity leadership.
Great. I want to thank you both. And as you're talking, I was really moved by the thought of not being shy that love is at the foundation of education. And we shouldn't walk past that. And also that who we are in terms of serving our kids is how do we serve ourselves? And I know identity leadership addresses that we have to look inside of our own leadership before we look to lead others. And I thought, Stedman, maybe you can highlight some of the key principles of identity leadership and how that then feeds into love as the basis for education.
Yeah, so thanks, Stu, and Joey, thank you for that. So identity leadership, I wrote a book that came out May 6th, and identity leadership is self-leadership. And it's based on the philosophy that you cannot lead anybody else before you first lead yourself. And so leading yourself, I mean, the biggest opportunity is to know yourself, know thyself, as they say. And that is very difficult to do in the world that we live in every single day because we're so controlled by the outside world. We're stuck in a box. Most of the time, we're in a fixed mindset, which means that we are doing the same thing over and over every day. We wake up in the morning, we wash our face, we brush our teeth, we get something to eat, we get the kids off to school, we work all day, come home in the afternoon, we spend time with the family, we watch TV, we go to bed, maybe we dream that's Monday. And we repeat that same cycle over and over every single day. So I often say, if you did the same thing you did yesterday as you would do today, as you would do tomorrow, what have you done? Nothing. How many people are stuck in that box? Probably 7 billion people are stuck in a fixed mindset, they call it. They're really not going anywhere. So they have to be told everything to do. They're pretty much followers. And so your ability to be able to focus on self is even difficult in the educational process, which teaches you how to memorize and take tests, repeat the information back, you get labeled with a grade, and 2 weeks later, you forget the information. So if you're doing the same thing over and over every single day, which is nothing, everything you learn, you forget, which is nothing. Nothing from nothing is nothing. And I'm telling you that because I want you to understand that you have to create something. You got to create yourself. You got to build yourself. You got to be able to understand how to organize your skills. And that doesn't come with a negative attitude. That comes with a positive attitude about your self-image, about who you are as a person, about what you look like, what your capabilities are. And it starts with you. You have to do that yourself. You have to create that for yourself. Yes, school is there, parents are there, everything around us we have the opportunity to access. But if we don't access ourselves, and if we don't know how to take the information and make it relevant to ourselves so we can build our own life, then pretty much we're going to be a follower and a consumer for the rest of our life, being controlled by the outside world who defines us as our race, defines us as our Gender tells women you can't make it because it's a man's world. You're defined by your entitlements. You're defined by religion. You're defined by house and car. And you're defined by all those things that are really external things, but are not really you. So the question is, how do you discover you? Discover you first, and then add all of those things on top of who you are, so that you're actually working from the core of who you are, so you don't have to be defined by the outside world. So that's my story. My story is I'm defined by my relationship with Oprah. So people put me in a box. I can't let them put me in a box. I got to be able to take my power back and realize that whoever defines you will always define you as less than them. You can't afford for people to label you and put you in a box based on having by the color of your skin, or by your gender, or by your class, or by your family. And speaking of family, I grew up with 2 disabled brothers in my family. I was defined by that early on. So, and I'm defined by the other labels that people want to give me, or that I give myself, and I buy into that program. So the identity leadership, when you talk about leadership, you can't lead anybody else until you first lead yourself. You can't even serve anybody else. You can't even help your family until you work on yourself to get it right for yourself. So the first step in the 9-step process, and I'm going to go through pretty quickly, is that you have to have an identity. You have to have a purpose in life. You have to know what makes you happy. And love is the foundation for building that identity. It simply is organizing everything in love. This is an organizational process of organizing everything around you that you love. Why is that important? It's important because you have to be motivated. It's important because you got to have a passion for it. It's important because you need to be an authority in your field. It's important because you need to be a learner. It's important because you need to practice on being good at what you do so that you have value. And the value that you give yourself is the value the world gives you. The world sees you as you see yourself. The question is, how do you see yourself? So I'm growing up with low self-esteem and lack of confidence. When I walk in the door, people say, this guy's got low self-esteem and a lack of confidence. That's how I see myself, and that's how the world sees me. So identity allows you to work on building that foundation and getting out of that fixed mindset into using your brain around thinking and developing, which is what educare tries to do. They try to get us to be thinkers, or get the students to be thinkers. Are you thinking? Einstein said you cannot solve a problem with the same mindset that caused it. So what does that mean? You have to read. You have to be a learner. You have to be able to organize the information. My life changed when I learned how to take information and apply it to what I love. What makes me happy? What am I passionate about? What skills do I have? What talents do I have? Going through 12 years of school, of high school, and then going to college and not coming out with any skills you're not relevant in the 21st century that says the world is changing every single day. First step, you got to have an identity. You got to have a purpose in life. You got to focus on what you love, bar none. Second step, you have to have a vision. So what can you see for yourself? I'm not talking about where you are. I'm talking about who you can be. The beautiful thing about if your students listening to this is that you have it. You couldn't have a better opportunity than today because, number one, you're smart. Number two, you have access to technology and information. And the good book says, be ye transformed by the renewal of your mind. So it's about constant learning and developing a self-directed learning mindset. So you don't wait for the teacher, you don't wait for the parents, you don't wait for the outside world to teach you how to learn about who you can become. Vision is not who you are, it's who you can become. In the greatest country in America, who can you become? You can become anybody you want. So when you understand that, then you begin to realize the power of information and education and how to make that relevant to your development so that you can improve yourself every single day. Third step, you got to have a plan. Okay, I'm motivated every single day. I'm working on my passion and my purpose in life. I'm defining myself. I'm organizing my life around what I can do. I have a vision. I'm going to own the world. You know, I'm looking at the global marketplace as a way to structure my whole life. I have now the third step. I got to go and develop a plan. So these 9 steps that I created allows me to self-actualize my potential based on each step. So the third step, after you visualize who you become, vision doesn't mean a lot if you can't write it down, if you can't organize it, if you can't create it, if you can design your own life. So third step is you got to have a plan. You got to be able to write it down, because we have 50,000 thoughts going through our mind every single day. You can't forget, you can't remember everything. It's impossible. So you got to write it down, organize it, and be clear on your future and where you're going. The fourth step is master the rules of the road, your guiding principles. What are they? Well, you got to have a value system. People have to be able to trust you. You have to be able to build, a program, drive, perseverance, dedication that you can go back to all of the time, that's consistent with your values based on who you want to become. Fifth step, step into the outer limits, overcoming your fears. What keeps you back? What are your study habits like? What's your discipline like? What are your fears? What are you afraid of? Who'd you learn to fear from, mother or father? Where'd you get the procrastination from? So we got to go back and realize, okay, what are our weaknesses? How do we work on our weaknesses to make them strengths? And how are we able to overcome the obstacles that we have to deal with every single day? What are we hardwired to do? So if we grow up with this negative attitude or negative feeling about ourselves, how do we change that? Because there's only 2 choices. There's negative and positive, good or bad, looking at the glass half empty or half full. So our ability to be able to understand who we are and what's possible for us allows us to transform ourselves from that negative energy that what? Destroys us, because the law of attraction says whatever you put out, you get back. Step 6, pilot the seasons of change. Well, we're going through that right now. We got to adapt to the changing circumstances every single day. So if you don't adapt, you can't be consistent. If you're not flexible and deal with the way things are happening and just get through it, you can't sustain yourself over a long period of time. You're not going to be in the game. You can't quit. You know, you don't have to be the strongest or the smartest all the time. The key is never quit, because you get another chance if you don't quit. Step 7, build your dream team. Got to have a team. No one makes alone. No man or woman is an island unto themselves. You cannot make it by yourself. And so you need a team. And your team is always predicated on how strong or weak you are. Because if you're a weak person or weak leader, right, then you attract weak people. If you're a strong leader, you attract strong people. So your ability to be able to develop a team. And so we have this huge, technology network to develop teams to help us organize our capacity and to help us with our vision and to help us with issues that we have to overcome based on our obstacles. Step 8, win by decision. Very important step for me, very personal for me. The thing that changed my life and allowed me to be able to define my own existence. And I've written 12 books. I travel around the world and I speak to people all over the world. I have programs in the schools and I have a 10-week course and I'm training people at the highest possible level. And I have a nice client base of people that I work with. And so what it enables me to do that is that I am a reader. I am a learner, and I'm trying to learn all of the time. And what's going to separate you from everybody else is your knowledge base. And you change when you change your thinking, you change your life. And that's the only way you can do it. Einstein said you cannot solve a problem with the same mindset that caused it. Last step, step 9, commit to your vision. So we talked about passion, we talked about vision, we talked about planning, all of this we talked about. But you got to create a whole lifestyle around that. So you got to create a whole life around who you are. and what you can see for yourself and what you write down and goals that you set every single day and your discipline and your value system. You create a whole lifestyle around that. And now we're talking about lifestyle because we're stuck in the house. So you talk about lifestyle, you got family, you got work, you got health, you got all those things we have to be concerned about to create a lifestyle around that to empower ourselves as a human being. And that's the only thing that matters. We are not our circumstances, we are our possibilities.
Beautiful, Stedman. Very powerful, very powerful. Thank you, Joey. I'd love you to feed off of anything that Stedman laid out to us.
Well, Stedman does this, man, and I feel like I went to church. You get this inspiration occurring. I think there's a couple of pieces I would just add. Some of the science to this that we look at at Thrive. He talked about fixed mindset. What we know is that when you do what he's talking about, you in essence go into growth mindset. And growth mindset scientifically allows your brain to be 31% more productive. Innovation, creativity, problem solving, decision making, everything changes when you go into growth mindset. And so all of those 9 steps are in essence an ability for you to say to your brain, instead of you managing me, I'm going to manage you. I'm going to take charge of the choices I make every day. Now, is it easy? Not necessarily, because we have, you think about neuroscience. Neuroscience, really invented in 1949, but in the last 20 years or so, they figured out that our brain is more like plastic, meaning that neuroplasticity is the ability to change one neural pathway to a new neural pathway. Now, to do that, if you think about how long you've been thinking, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not valuable, that could be 15, 20, 30, 40 years. And so what Stedman is talking about is what I call micro steps that are necessary to begin building new neural pathways. So in essence, what that means is every day you've got to take one small step on this path. And if you do, it's like this old road, which has lots of bricks in it. You begin to take one brick every day and you put it in this new road. And now neuroscientists will tell you that can take 16 days at the minimum to as many as 254 days. I've seen people get inspiration and change in a moment. But I think what you want to recognize is, for most of us, this is a path, this is a journey. And so if you're willing to take a step every day, one small step to get a little bit better, there will be a point when you have a new neural pathway that's built on this idea that who I am is loving, caring, valuable, worthy, successful, abundant human being. And when that kicks in, you're going to see the results of all of this. But the thing I see catch people is they take a couple of steps and then something doesn't work and they go back to this old way of thinking and feeling and being. So Stedman's process to me, and the reason why we've resonated so much as friends is I firmly believe that every human being deserves to know that who they are is valuable, that every human being deserves to know that they are loved and that they deserve love. And that, though, has to begin from the inside out. And so this journey is a process of recognizing your own identity, that who you are is valuable, who you are is worthy. And when you get that, then the world begins to reflect that. And then your experiences begin to reflect that. And then all the things you may want, because some people want cars, some people want a house, it doesn't matter. But those things manifest as a result of living in that zone that who I am is a human being that is worthy and deserving of love, honor, respect, abundance, all those things. So, I'm passionate about this work, as you know, and at Thrive, our work is all about teaching organizations that it's inside out, that you got to get that right. And then you can start doing a lot of things that help to get you there. But if you don't do it inside out, it doesn't stick. It's, it lands, but it doesn't expand.
So let me ask both of you, because this is very inspiring. I think many of us educators here with you, we carry that for ourselves and we're looking to develop ourselves. And then we ask, how do we help set the stage, the environment? How do we set our organizations, our schools up so our kids with low self-esteem even value themselves enough to want to be an identity leader? So what can we do to set the environment, the stage, supporting people to step into this? Because the steps are there, but some people may not be ready for that. What can we do to prepare the way?
Well, I think what we have to do, well, I know what we have to do is we have to add additional information. I mean, we do what we do well. Teachers are great. Educational system, we have the opportunity. Educators doing so much around education, but until I got the right content, Stu and Joey and everybody else, nothing was happening because it was what Joey was talking about with a fixed mindset. A fixed mindset is you going nowhere. A fixed mindset was relevant 30 years ago when everybody worked together, community work, you had Social Security, you had a pension, you had, you worked on the job, you had for 30 years and you had a great retirement package and all of that. And everybody got along and sang Kumbaya and everybody got along really well and all of that. Today, that's over. Today, this is 21st century. It means, this is law of the jungle. Only the strong survive. So you got to keep up. You got to be a learner. You got to be able to be relevant. You got to have skills. And so if you do that, if you keep up, if you read, if you use technology as a way to advance your social economic development and opportunities, if you're in the present, if you don't live out of your unconscious, which runs us, and you become conscious of the resources around us, which is akin to new learning opportunities, which is akin to new books being written that we have to read about, which is akin to understanding that the fourth revolution is here, which is technology and information. And what we have to do is we got to be able, the fourth industrial revolution is what I'm trying to say, is here. And so that's a change we have to change ourselves so that we understand how to utilize that as a way to enhance our value based on where the marketplace is going. So this is the you economy. This is about you and your ability to build yourself, put your mask on first, organize your life, and then serve the world based on your talents and your skills. It's still a service-based world. We want to serve people, but there is a process for success. And it took me a long time to understand. I've been searching for equality and freedom. I give myself freedom. I give myself equality. I'm not allowing you to define my equality and freedom. So there's three systems. There's a failed system, there's the average system, and there's a above average system. And the above average system says that we have to customize a program that's personalized for our development that allows us to control our own destiny. That's the system we're talking about. And then you can apply that and co-create with the average system, which is the American free enterprise system, or the average system that's in place, which means you go to college, you go to high school, you go to college, you get a degree, you come out and you work and you find something that you love and you become an authority in that field. But we're talking about customizing a program specifically for you that works for you, that allows you to take care of yourself and your family.
Love it. And then I would just add to that, Stu, your personal story. When we moved from South Central LA out to the West Valley, and I was in a school where there was probably 5 other Black people. And while I had the experience of starting to recognize my own value, I was put in a scenario at 15 years old where, being one of 5 people in the school that was 1,100 people, I still felt moments of not being worthy, not being good enough. And I was in a AP English class with a teacher named Mrs. Urita. And I remember her focusing on me because I said a few things early on. I must have caught her attention. And she started reinforcing my value. And interestingly enough, even though, I had lots of other elements that were reinforcing my value, and I was working on reinforcing my own value at 15, that moment and that teacher is still my favorite teacher of all time. And so as educators, what I will say is work on yourself, as Stedman's talking about. That's the critical piece, because when you are when you are aligned and being you, it is automatically being scaled out to the people around you. But secondly, take an interest, be compassionate, stretch out and reach out, as I'm sure many of you do, to those students who the one little nudge may make a huge difference. The compounding effect of her singling out me in an AP English class to lead in many ways built this little inner reservoir of confidence that made a difference as I went through that process of reorientating myself to a completely different environment. So don't underestimate not only living and walking the talk, because people will see you and get it, but also compassion, right? And empathy and caring and reaching out. Those elements as leaders and as educators make a difference. Small.
And Joey, you said something very powerful, and I wrote it down. It's underestimate. Don't underestimate yourself. Stop underestimating yourself. Stop falling into the average program that we are exposed to. Find your own program so that you can do everything that's possible for you based on your intellect, your talents, your skills, your background. And so I deal with that all the time in terms of growing up with low self-esteem, a lack of confidence, because I was teased and bullied about my brothers, my family, and all of that. So, and grew up with a lot of shame and all of that. So I have to deal with that every single day. But the way I deal with it is I don't let pain become a design for my life. I don't let the trauma become a design for my life. I recreate my own life based on what's possible. And so that is really utilizing all of these skills and abilities that you have, and realize that the process of success, this is what changed my life. One of the things is that the process of success is the same for everybody. The difference is some people know it, some people don't. So when you understand the process of success, you say, man, I can, Joey, like you know the capitalistic system and how that works. Man, you could give us a whole chapter on how that's changed your life and change your living conditions and change your environment and change your choices. So the ability to be able to, understand how all of that works and to utilize all of the talents and gifts that you have and all the resources that you have, so you can make everything relevant to who you are every single day, so you can create and build your own future. That's the secret. That's the process of success.
Great. We're getting so much interest from folks, and I want to bring up some of the questions in the chat room. And one from Marguerite Ward, who's one of the Educare facilitators, asks, what are some tips of how teachers can support students who are struggling now with this virtual learning? What can we do hands-on to help them at this point in time?
I'll take it first, Stedman. We've been doing a lot of research on this, actually. Part of what we've been seeing is, look, kids from about 13 to early 20s are struggling the most through the COVID pandemic. They are missing what's called the diversity of connection. And what's happening is, one, this is a developmental age for them to be out and about and learning how to survive without their parents. They're not getting that. Two, if you look at some of what happens in relationship to connection, when you run into somebody, when you play with somebody, when you laugh with somebody, there's endorphins, there's oxytocin, there's serotonin boosts, there's dopamine, there's all the stuff that happens in the brain that isn't happening because they aren't getting those connections. And so their struggles are based on some real hormonal and real mental challenges. And so we've looked at this a lot. And part of the challenge is most of us have started to get to the point where we're telling our young people, don't look at devices so much. And what happens with devices is they also tax in the executive region, this prefrontal cortex, smartest part of our brain. But when we're looking at devices all day long, it's burning that out. So now you've got them looking at devices a lot more than they really should be. They're missing the connection and the boost that help their brain. So a couple of simple tools that I've been telling parents and all our clients. One is you have to find ways for them to connect. Listen, they're missing their social interactions, their sports, all of that. Find safe ways to get your kids connection. They need it. It's important for their brain. And so whatever that may look like, small groups of safe families, letting your kids hang out together. A couple days a week where they might be able to do something that they need to do in terms of school or track or something, right? Give them at least a little bit of it. And then when they're doing online stuff, you have to let them do online stuff that's also just about connecting. So it's like, hey, why don't you and your best friend Sarah just have a Zoom call and just connect on Zoom. Hey, how you doing? They don't actually think about that. They'd rather play a video game and laugh at people on that, but they actually need that one-on-one, that boost that I was talking about. So as much as you can as educators, start encouraging them to have those connective moments. It's the one thing they're missing. The second thing they may be missing is movement. We know if you're moving significantly, if you got 3 times a week where you're moving at least 20 minutes, it actually recharges the brain. So make sure they're moving in some way, shape, or form. They naturally do it when they're out and about. When they're home, they're just sitting all day long, and it's impacting that element of it. And third, make sure they're sleeping. Sleep actually is critical for recharging the brain. 7 to 9 hours minimum, and for some of them, they may need as much as 10. So depending upon their brain. So a lot of kids now are staying up later because they don't really have to worry about getting up to go to school. They're on devices longer, right? And then they go to bed 1, 2, 3 a.m. and then 7, 8 a.m. they have to get up and go to school virtually, but they're missing the amount of sleep they need. So those are the big pieces to helping them right now.
Great, Joey. And I know, yeah, I see some folks with their thank you on that one, and because they're dealing with it, day by day, and small doses too versus longer classes. We're finding give those kids a break in the middle of a class, have a play, something, have an activity, have some energizer going right in the middle of the academics or the enrichment class because they can't stay on that all the time. They need some of that time off. And I know Margalit and others are doing these ACE heartbeats where it's like, let's make connection as the theme. There's some schools in LA that are going, before we can teach this year, we got to connect our kids to one another and their teachers. So Armando and the whole team around him here with Educare is building that sense of we need connection before we go right into academics, because kids don't care how much you know, we've been told, until they know that we care. Let's build that element right there at ground zero. And so I was going to add to that. I see some other questions coming through here and others, and thank you, Joey and Margalit. Cindy Wilkinson, who actually, and I was just talking with Cindy the other day, co-authored a book called Making the Best of Me from Educare back 30 years ago, and it's now coming out digitally. She asked the question, what are some of the micro steps we can do? And this is what I'm often thinking about, to help students daily learn valuing themselves regardless of the situation. In order to step into identity leadership, something's got to say, I'm worth it. I care enough about me to even go for this. How do we get them to that stage of the game to even find that self-esteem you were talking about, Stedman?
Well, I think really, I mean, for all of us, even young people and adults, it's the same thing. It's really focusing on having a positive attitude and being aware of that. You have the conscious versus the unconscious. The conscious are your habits that are hardwired, and that's really who you are. Your conscious is what you receive in the present. So basically, it's what you read, what you experience, and all of that. So your present, your consciousness turns into the unconscious. So you can control your unconscious. You can control your habits by being able to make sure you have the right information, make sure you read the right information, make sure that you kind of have the right experiences. And love is a great way, it's kind of a focal point. It's a great way to change the way you think so you can change your experiences. To focus on things that help you love yourself, things that you can actually do to care more about yourself. things that are focused on things that you love to do that make you happy, your passions, things that motivate you. And so that's a mindset. So we got to change our mindset so that we can change our energy level, because it's the energy that takes us out. I work in the prison system in South Carolina, working with inmates. I worked in the prison system 5 years. And so I have that experience. So I go in there and I train inmates, how to change the energy around based on who they are, and how to focus on love as a way to transcend all of that negative energy. Because when you put that energy out, you get that energy back. It comes back to you. You harm yourself. So your mental state and your mental health is based on that. Is that, are you going to focus on the negative? Because if you focus on the negative, that's exactly the energy you're going to get back. And it's going to come directly back to you. That's a law. That's a principle. And you can't get around that. And so, again, my ability to be able to do this tough time of being in confined and being in one place and having to deal with all of the things that I have to deal with, it's based on how I view myself and how I see the situation. So I always have to turn that situation into you can only have one thought at a time. You can't have two. So the thinking I want to have is, I want to have a love-based thinking around what is possible, so I can change my energy so my feelings don't run me. It's my thinking that allows me to now set the tone for what I'm going to do that day or that week or that month. And even that turns into a year.
I'm double down on that, and I add two other elements. So love's the most primary thing, getting kids to recognize that they actually love themselves, right? That's primary. There's two other elements in the recent research that is also impacting brains: gratitude and compassion. And one of the things that we see is gratitude for young people in particular begins to change their neurology in about 3 days. Compassion in a week. Both of those will change your neurology to start focusing in areas of your brain. When you're in gratitude, you literally cannot be in the part of your brain where negative thinking, fear exists. They're diametrically opposed. And so if you can start to just thinking of micro steps, again, you work the love angle, but you also get people to start thinking about what they're grateful for. And it doesn't matter who you are. If you're living in this country, there's something to be grateful for. If you start focusing along those lines, you will notice the neurology. You'll notice that everything about their brain begins to change. And then the third piece is compassion. There's two elements to that: self-compassion and compassion for others. Self-compassion means, to Stedman's point, you've got to be really careful about the negative self-talk or the negative judgment you do on yourself. And I ask people to literally, at the end of every day, just pause and be appreciative of and compassionate about what you got done today and how you were being today, as an exercise. And then think about what you're grateful for today as an exercise. And then big one, think about who you love and how you love today. And if you don't have answers to that, that gives you an assignment for tomorrow. Like, okay, if I don't have love in my thing, I got to do love tomorrow. And what does that look like? Well, it may just be, I love myself enough to get up and exercise, to do my homework, to whatever the answer to that might be. So get those as actionable steps for people, especially young people, and you'll start to see a difference. And you can do it in class. Hey, everybody, we're doing a gratitude session. Hey, everybody, we're doing a compassion session. How can I be more self-compassionate with myself? Hey, everybody, we're doing a love session. What do you love about yourself? I used to go in, when Stu remembers this, we used to go into Stu's classroom and we would make all these kids stand up and say, what's the good news about me? And they did not want to do it. It was hard. Their brains didn't even want to think about it. And I'm sure 40 years later, I don't know how many years it was ago, but 45 years later, it's still not easy. We have, Stanford medicine will tell you, we have 5 negative thoughts for every 1 positive. So flipping that switch, as teachers, you got to work, and you got to give them assignments. You got to get them practicing it, because they're going to, more normally, they're going to go negative than positive. What Stedman's saying is the big game. If you can get them in that, you change the whole paradigm.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
And Joey, what you were saying, if you got 50,000 thoughts going through your head a day, how do you organize that? How do you stay focused on that? And then if you become an ADHD with this, where now this runs you instead of you running it, now you got another issue.
That's right.
So how do you now stay focused? Because whatever you focus on expands. You cannot create any kind of accomplishment unless you can focus. It's not going to have any empowerment. So exactly what you said, focus on love as a way to organize and make that practical in your life, right? So it becomes real and relevant.
It's wonderful. I want to bring in, we're getting some wonderful comments in the chat. One of the things I first wanted to share off what you're saying is that compassion for yourself also has to do, and we teach this in educators, self-forgiveness. And how do you be more easy during these tough times? We're not going to be our game every day. We're going to have some tough moments, some tough days, and just to be light with ourselves, light with each other. Don't expect the same thing, like you might have expected a year ago. Be gentle there. And I want to thank some of the comments coming in. Laura Novak says, hey, start your classes with a short community building circle. Help set the positive mindset of the day. Beautiful comment. There's a question, and I'd love to send this out to you, Stedman and Joey, from AD Celeste Nori. She says, do you find that there's a difference among female and males, both young and adults, to be able to develop the ability to apply everything that's been discussed? Do you find gender differences in what you're working with, Stedman, Joey?
Well, I think we're talking about cultural, and I think we're talking about group dynamics and our ability to relate to each other. Men can relate to men, and women can relate to women, and that should be a strength, okay, in terms of organizing collective consciousness. And then when you have multicultural groups, it might be a different dynamic. I used to teach in Job Corps. So Job Corps is tough, man. You go into Job Corps, they run you out of there, So, I could do fine. It would be fine if I could get all the boys in one class, without the girls being in the same class, because the boys would try to show out in front of the girls, nothing would get done for the most part. So you got that dynamic, but you had to include that dynamic into that equation and figure out how to maneuver around that, use tools to be able to make that a successful outcome. So you definitely have to, there definitely is a difference between men and women, no question about it. And so when you're dealing with the different cultures, you got to understand the strengths and also the weaknesses of all of that.
Yeah, and one additional piece we're seeing has to do with social media. So here's the challenge. Ariana recently really supported a guy named Tristan Harris who just did a documentary for Netflix called The Social Dilemma, which is worthwhile looking at if you haven't seen it. And Tristan and I, we had lots of conversations around this. And one of the things that I would say, big distinction, when women look at social media, young girls in particular, they are constantly comparing themselves to these artificial means of measurement. How someone looks, what their shoes are, et cetera, et cetera. And in that comparison, they are most often seeing themselves as not good enough to that artificial means of measurement. Men do something similar, but not nearly to the extent that women do. And so what's happening is we're seeing mental health spikes across that young age group, in particular in college. We have a class going on at USC, a Thrive class going on at USC right now. And I did a program for Harvard Business School last year, all based on this, where we're trying to get young people, but young women in particular, to start recognizing their own value, that it has nothing to do with whether they have this thing that they're looking at comparing themselves against. And so what the challenge that I'm seeing in this area is more of how young women are looking at themselves and comparing themselves in a negative way. Every once in a while they feel better, but most often they finish looking at that and they don't feel good enough. So that's where the challenge is, and really reframing and getting them to start saying, hey, that's not my value. My value isn't who I am, not what I do or what I have. That's the big mindset shift we're seeing needs to occur for young people in general, but in particular for young women.
Yeah. That's great. And I think that transfers over to all of us of how sometimes comparisons will be the root to some of our self-doubt and low self-esteem, and realizing we're all unique. And how do we then move that out as we respect ourselves? Our kids pick up on that and they start respecting themselves just for who they are. We're seeing some other questions coming in. Thank you, Joey and Stedman. This one comes from Brian Evans, who does some great work in business. Also, thank you, Brian, for your service with Educare over the years. And he writes, what are some of the examples in people in the world, positions of leadership, education, business, and so forth, who are now authentically demonstrating this, empowering those around them? Can you see this form growing? Is this form of leadership, transformational identity leadership, actually growing out into our world in places that make a difference? What are you seeing these days?
Well, what I'm seeing is that there's so much external noise. There's so much noise around us that we're confused. And we're confused at a lot of different levels. And if we don't get back to really the basic fundamentals of who we are, what's possible for us, what are our talents, what are our skills, what are we reading, what are we ingesting? Because like Joey was saying with social media, man, it inhibits your ability to connect to people. It's hard to build relationships because you're so busy, on the iPhone. The information is not relevant to your development. So when you talk about leadership, then, and you're talking about people who are affected by at a lot of different levels, who are at the high levels, at the mid levels, at all different levels, kid level, all of those levels are being affected by technology. And so we have to be able to, if we want to develop good, strong leadership skills, we've got to be able to figure out how to take that information and make it relevant to who we are, transfer it to our minds so we can actually decipher the difference between good information and bad information, right? And then organize it and let it empower our existence so that we can become better at what we do, as it becoming, worse because we've got so much information available to us. We don't know how to decipher the information or make it relevant to our performance or our effectiveness. So our life becomes less meaningful when technology should make our lives more meaningful based on the focus that we have and based on the content that's available to us in this in a huge global marketplace we're in. It's a change of mindset. It's a change of thinking. And it's also a paradigm shift that you have to have in terms of, how we are evolving.
Excellent.
Yeah, 100%, 100% agree. And I think I can tell you from the Thrive side, what we're starting to see in corporations is more of what Stedman's been talking about. It's almost necessary at this stage of the game because people have evolved to the state where they know the difference. And so if you want to keep up as a leader, you have to evolve or you get left behind. And I'll tell you, like Satya at Microsoft, he's talking about this every day. You're seeing the major corporations in the world now saying, hey, you got to understand self. We have to be more compassionate. We got to believe in what it means to live a life where you are integral and all of that. And I think part of it may be a response to kind of where our country's been in the last 4 years, where people are done with this thing about, hey, we don't take care of each other. We are individually focused from the perspective of not thinking about service or humanity or all those things. I think leaders are starting to say, I have to lead myself, which is the theme of everything that Stedman's been talking about. But there is also a bigger element of, and I have to lead others in a way that represents this way of thinking. If I don't, I'm out. And you're going to see, I think the flip is happening globally. You're going to see people on their way out who have not been living that particular principle.
Yeah, I think.
And if I can interrupt a minute, it starts with our young people.
Yeah.
I will say this, if you're not focusing on developing young people, you're not doing anything.
Yeah.
We are wasting our time because they are the future. They set the tone for what the community is going to look like in the years to come. They set the tone for what our country is going to look like in the years to come. And we have all of this smart, human intelligence out there with these young people, and they're smart and they're able to use technology, and so we have to turn that into self-development, and we got to turn that into human capital, and we got to be able to monetize that and make that work for them and us and our country. And we have to have a paradigm shift. We no longer focus on the 1%, and the 99% doesn't know how to be relevant to the 21st century. So it requires training. It requires what educare is doing. It requires leadership, Stu, what you're doing, Joey, what you're doing. All of us are doing based on building an educational system that is that's relevant to our development, and it starts with young people. So how do we do that? How do we create a structure around that? How do we make that scalable? How do we organize content to deliver that in a global marketplace? That should be our concern. And it's possible for us to do that in the greatest country in the world.
That's wonderful. I mean, as I'm listening, I'm noting so many people who are on this call carry this in their work. People from the County Office of Education here, Michelle Pernot, people from the State Department of Education, others across the country. And that whole idea of not being shy to let that heart leadership, that compassionate leadership is worthy of being brought forward. It's nothing to shy back from. It produces results. And in the world of education, I know many of us who work in California, we know Michael Funk, who heads us up in after-school expanded learning, and he talks about let love be the foundation of the work we do in after school. Don't shy back. The kids need to know that. And I think as leaders, it's being said we can do that effectively right now. So I love the message that's being brought out. And I just want to invite any others who are coming in, please put your questions into the chat room. And I wanted maybe to focus a little bit about what we might do to address racial injustice, climate change, all the pressing issues. How does an identity leader, a transformational leader, step into the day-to-day big issues that are around us and not shy back from it, but step into it? So how might you help us navigate that we're being called into action? How do we do it from a transformational point of view?
Joey, your turn.
Well, look, I think there's a lot to it. One is, we as a society right now need to recognize that every single one of us needs to make a choice. And the choice to me is always around stepping forward or stepping back. And I have met with many leaders in the last 6 months, a lot of the major organizations, Walmart and Accenture and Salesforce and Microsoft and everyone, about that issue, specifically racial injustice. And what I'm telling people is there's two components of that are critical. Like, the reason why anybody in an office is uncomfortable with that conversation is because they're uncomfortable with themselves. If you step into a space, I had a great conversation with a leader at Walmart, and a white male, he said, I have no experience in this. So he went to the Center for Racial Equality and took a course for a week and came back and said, now I know. I still don't know the experience of actually being in it, but I'm just going to support. Walmart put up $100 million just for a Black equity fund, because this guy said, listen, I don't know what to do. I don't have the right answers, but I care. And as a leader, I'm going to put our money on the line. I'm going to put my body on the line. And he says, most of my conversations, he's like, what do I do? And I said, listen, just listen. That's all you have to do. Just go, hey, listen, Joey, I don't know what the answer is. What do you think? And that allows you to be a leader with heart, a leader with compassion. Listen, if people feel heard, if they feel valued, and if they feel you care, they will engage. That's all you have to do. And I said, you don't have to be responsible for all the answers that are responsible, that we need to make around these issues. So I just tell people, be a leader of the heart. Stu calls it heart set. It's Educare's thing. If you have a heart set, not just the mindset of I care about people, I value people, and I'm here to listen to you. That's all you need right now. The answers will come collectively. We're smart enough society that if we all step into that place, we will come up with the right answers. What gets us off is the right wrong game. When I call it right wrong game, it's that you're right and I'm wrong, and I'm not open to your point of view and you're not open to mine. We can't live that way anymore as a society. So to the big question of whether it's climate change or any of the other issues, live in our hearts and let's collectively make decisions based on what we as a group decide, as a society decide. I think that's where heart set leadership, the mindset of identity leadership, all that makes a difference.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Joey. Stedman, anything on that? Where do we find
Yeah.
ourselves that you would like
Yeah,
to
thank you so much. I love the whole race-based consciousness thing I had for years. I'm mad, I'm angry, I'm enraged by it, all of that. And then throughout my life, I mean, because of, in addition to a lot of other issues, but race was certainly in my face. And to be able to, define my own existence based on who I am, and then to find love as the centerpiece for being able to transcend race or transcend nationality or transcend religion and not have negative energy be a part of the relationship. And because negative energy doesn't know the story, it doesn't know what color you are, it doesn't care what color you are. It's just energy. So negative energy is negative energy regardless of who has it. And it's going to get you the same result, which is going to come back to you. It's going to have a detrimental effect to you personally, right? And professionally when you use it. So it's not in your best interest to use negative energy or to think somebody's less than because of the color of their skin or because of their background or where they came from or what they look like or whatever the case may be. It's not in your personal best interest because it's going to come back to you to harm you and devalue your capacity as a human being. And so your ability to ascend to a higher level, to raise your consciousness, to understand that, to work on that every day, because it's not hard, because we're hardwired a lot and we buy into the program of labels, which are designed to control us and to control our thinking. So for me to understand that, I understand it now. I got it. So what I have to do is I have to redefine my existence based on my talents, my skills. I got to ask myself, how do I become a service to mankind and womankind in the world today? How do I help as many people as possible based on who I am and my talents, my skills? How do I serve myself and serve the world? How do I put all of that together? How do I rise above this system that's in place that is designed to control my mindset? Okay, so you got three systems. I talked about that. You got a fail system, one. You got an average system, two, and you got an advanced system. I want the advanced system. I want to be able to look beyond the fray, be able to rise above the negative activities, whether I don't make comments on it, I don't participate in it. I want to be able to get above that based on only two choices in the world we have is love or hate, good or bad, will or won't, can or can't, looking at the glass half empty or half full. So I want to stay on looking at the glass half full. And I want to stay on the love side as opposed to the hate side. I want to stay on. So if I do that, then it means I have to add, based on that, it changes the way I treat people. It changes the way I respond to folks. It changes the way I have relationships with folks. And, it's how relationships are built on how you make other people feel about themselves. That's a strong relationship, is I make you feel good about yourself. So if you want to have a good relationship with your spouse or with your partner, whatever the case would be, what may be, you want to be able to make them feel good about themselves. That's really the key. So knowing that allows me to free myself from all the historical baggage that I used to carry and to continue to work on that. I'm sorry it's taking so long, but it's a very important issue, is to be able to use love as the foundation for transcending and building relationships.
That's wonderful. One of the things I'm thinking of as you're sharing, Stedman, is one of the highest forms I've often heard said of love is service. And when love kind of, it's growing within that, someone says, I just care to give. And we're seeing our kids that people have given up on. And I've been in a lot of service projects with some of my inner city kids where they go, that kid can't go out in the community. You put him out in the community. And I remember one story in Philly where we took our African-American kids from Dobbins Tech out to an all-Italian nursing home. And before we knew it, the school said, you can't take them. They'll embarrass us. And I said, watch and see. And before you knew it, there was a love fest going on. And kids had new grandparents, Italian grandparents had new kids, and we couldn't leave. They said, got to bring them back. And our kids are starting to really, and I find self-value comes often through service, that people discover themselves as they give of their love. We had kids that I don't want to go. I can't help anybody. And they find out, man, I have a lot. And all of a sudden they're back in school, higher grades, achieving more because they have a sense of their own value through love. And I think that's a key for our kids. We're at a time, I think, where service for our kids is exploding, and we have to keep opening the doors for them to serve. And I just wanted to bring that into the mix here. We have Perla mentions, hey, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. Speaking to what you said, Stedman, Eleanor Roosevelt quote. So you were right on the line there. I want to leave it back over. I don't see any questions at this point. Stedman, Joey, any direction you want to take into our conversation that hasn't been approached yet?
Well, I just think that, first of all, this is a great platform. And Stu, thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to share and talk about our experiences. I am so enthusiastic about the work that I'm doing around identity leadership, because I mean, it's a reflection of my own life, and I'm just trying to make sure that young people, especially young people, have it, they get it, and they understand that they have the power to create and develop and to build anything they want in the greatest country in the world. You couldn't have a better opportunity than now. Don't look at this pandemic as a way to keep you back. Look at it as an opportunity to work on yourself. Look at it as an opportunity to read and develop yourself. Look at it as an opportunity to raise your consciousness. Look at this tool as an opportunity to get information out of this and apply it to your own development. Look at it as an opportunity to be able to build relationships, with your family. Look at this opportunity to be able to think and to imagine what's possible for you as a human being in the global marketplace. Look at it as an opportunity to be able to work on your health, to be able to figure out what your vision is going to be, to figure out who you can become. So when this is all over, when we talk about the new normal, look at it as a way to say, you know what, success is when preparation meets opportunity. I'm going to be prepared. That means I'm going to work hard every single day not to be where I am. You're not your circumstances, you are your possibilities, but to create possibilities for yourself in the future that you can manifest based on, living in a world where we have access to almost everything, especially in America. You don't have to walk 5 miles to get water. You don't have to go outside to the bathroom so it's just all of these luxuries and these systems these that are in place that are designed to make our life easier. And so it's like Joey was talking about, be grateful, have a gratitude about what is possible and stop focusing on the negative. That's not an easy thing to do. It's easy to go negative. It's hard to focus on passion and love and caring and, making good choices. You got to work on that all the time because we're not programmed to do that. It's like Joey, we're talking about with the neural pathways. We're stuck in that. We're hardwired in that. So it's very uncomfortable if the foundation of your existence is negative, right? And you're focused on things that are comfortable. You've been doing it all your life the same way because you've been conditioned to do that. So to break out of that, you wonder why, oh man, it's so hard to do that. so hard to love myself and care for myself and be positive. Why? Because we've been programmed for so many years, right, to look at the least of who we are as opposed to what is possible for us as a human being. So we have to remind ourselves to do that all of the time.
Thank you. Thank you. Joe, anything you want to share on that?
Yeah, well, just to add, because look, I've been saying let's not waste a good crisis. You know, we got an opportunity here to really make changes that maybe if we were all running around like we were before, we wouldn't make. To Stedman's point, this is a great time to work on self. It's a great time to be committed to the things that you need to do to take better care of self. In fact, we talked about this. We're going to offer everybody an app that will come with this course, which you can share with any of your students, by the way, which is an app we developed around helping people make better choices. And what we're seeing a lot right now is one of the reasons why people are struggling with this pandemic is some of the things I've talked about. They're not taking care of themselves in ways that allow them to be at their best. And the pandemic gives us a good excuse not to. But I would just say, I want you to commit to something along the lines of what we've been talking about today. A daily practice of recognizing your value, of gratitude, of just telling yourself you love yourself, of whatever it is, running, moving, eating right, whatever it is, find something that you do every day. What we know is that a daily commitment, small thing done every day consistently will create major impact. I don't know how much longer we're going to be in this scenario, but when you come out of it, you want to come out of it better than when we started. You want to come out of it rocking and rolling. And so, we're giving you access to something that can help you with that. But whatever it is, I want you to come out of this call today to say, here's the one thing I'm going to commit to doing every day for myself between now and whenever I want to stop it. That may be a year and a half from now, maybe indefinitely, maybe 6 months, doesn't matter. But commit to something. And that daily commitment is a demonstration of your love for yourself. When you show up every day and say, I'm walking 10 minutes a day, and you do that, the message to yourself is, I love and I care about myself. So find something that demonstrates it, that starts to build that inner mindset, as Stedman's been talking about, that allows you to then come out of this thing even better than when it started.
I love what you're saying about those habits are an expression of your self-love, those self-care habits. And Joey, thanks for that app. It's in the chat room, everybody, the Thrive Global app that Joey's describing. And Stedman, I would love for people to hear more about and learn how they can touch into the book Identity Leadership. And I know we have something we can post. Would you speak to the book Identity Leadership and how people can take to that, Stedman?
Yeah, I think you can go to stedmangraham.com, and also it's in Amazon, but it's hopefully you get a chance to get the book. I'm not trying to sell the book, but I want you to have it because it's been life-changing for me. And it's changed my life in terms of being able to build a foundation and create a process for success. School is great. We live in a great world. We have access to technology. But to be able to find a process, it's like Joey said, you start with the small steps of working on yourself every single day consistently over a long period of time. There's no quick fix. You're not going to get there overnight. It's going to be overnight success is 20 years. It takes a while. But if you're on that journey and you begin to build that foundation for organizing information and education, and knowledge is the key to all of this, and you're making it relevant to you, and like Joey was saying, and Stu, you also support this, you got to work on yourself. And that's the best advice I can give anybody. Work on yourself, work on yourself, work on yourself every day, work on yourself, and then you have something to share and give to the world.
That is great advice. Great advice.
I'll sell the book, Stu. I'll sell the book. Buy the dang book, everybody.
Can we show that book, Armando, on screen? I think we have it somehow.
Yeah. Look, man, you've heard the 9 steps and you saw how powerful they were. And he takes you through all of that in the book. So get the book. You'll find it's a great tool for actualizing what we've been talking about.
Great. Identity leadership. Thanks. I know we have it to be shared. Here it is on screen. Identity leadership: to lead others, you must lead yourself. And there it is on Amazon.
Thank
Had a
you very
great
much
price.
for that.
Excellent. So thank you.
Thank you.
On that, Stedman. And I wanted to, as we're starting to get to close it out, I wanted to share how Educare supports this whole transformational educational process. Kudos to all the Educare staff who are with us, who've been doing this. Some actually left to teach this class that we're doing for high schools in all parts of LA, called ACE Heartbeats. So how do you build that sense of inner strength, inner leadership, inner compassion? And we've taken it into these 1-hour segments that schools are signing on to, where they get large groups of kids with teachers. So they're building connection, they're building relationship, and they're discovering more of who they are and what their strengths are. It's all asset-based, so it's fun. Armando's at charge of that. So for those of you who want to see how to bring it out into your neighborhood, just get in touch with Armando. We'd love to bring it out as well. And in closing, we're about to close out. Any closing? I know you've already maybe made your closing comments already, but is there anything further you'd like to share, Stedman and Joe, before we close out and thank everyone?
Joey?
Well, it's fun to do this with you, man. We been talking about this. Stedman and I have been talking about this for a long time, and both of us being really passionate about youth and passionate about the work that Educare is doing for our youth. And I've been on the board, as Stu says, for 20. I had an afro when I started on the board, so that just tells you how far.
I had one too. No, I didn't.
But look, it's been a pleasure and a treat, and and for any of you on who just say we're happy to do more of this. We want to help make a difference, and we want to do it with young people too. So, let us know if we can support. This is a commitment we have to helping transform our humans, our young people, the educators who put themselves, thank you quickly to the educators who put yourselves on the line every day. It's been probably more difficult for you than anyone else, just trying to manage through this time. And your kids are at home and you got to teach kids from home. I mean, I know it's nuts. So God bless you. And it's been a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you. And Stedman, thank you so much, both of you, for taking your time. I want to just put my thanks out to everyone. As Joey said, so many of us on today in so many different ways are really serving and helping and lifting people. So take care of yourselves. Let identity leadership, heart set leadership, love leadership, whatever name you put on it, let that heart carry the way, and have a great rest of your day. And with our thanks out, Stedman and Joey, it's been spectacular that you gave of your time today. And we're so glad you
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And thank you to Educare. And Joey, thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye,
And
everyone.
thank everybody, Amando and everybody in the audience, and teachers, especially, and parents who are trying to support their families and their kids. So thank y'all so much for your dedication.
Great. We'll have the recording available out to you soon. Be well, everybody. And remember, go Dodgers.